You guys have been on my radar for a hell of a long time, and I remember when I first discovered, not discovered you, but found your builds online, and seeing that you guys were like from Coventry as well, or you guys studied at Coventry at least, and I remember thinking like, you know, this was I think 2012, 2013, which I think is somewhere around the time that you guys started out. And I remember just thinking like, you know, the whole cafe racer thing was like really happening at that time. It was like a really trendy thing. And I just wondered like what gave you guys the confidence to go, well, we can do this too. And not only can we do this, but we can do it better. What was there any grand plan with regard to getting started?
Yeah, you're totally right. I think with the kind of the cafe racer thing from I think from like 2009, 2010 onwards, even probably earlier than that. It kind of took off from like people like Deus and stuff like that. And I think when we were at Coventry Uni, it was I graduated in 2011, so in those years, whilst the previous from 2007 onwards, 2008 onwards, the when we were like mood boarding projects, when we were storyboarding projects, the lifestyle stuff just started to kind of appear because we were very like card design orientated. We were looking at, you know, card design news websites, only like sketch websites. So we're very like quite kind of niche in terms of our mood boarding, but we started to kind of introduce lifestyle images at uni, and then we were just sort of dabbing on the cafe racer stuff then, just from like certain projects that we were working on. And then when I graduated, me and my brother, I was working in London at the time for a design agency, and me and my brother decided just to build something. There was no plan, like there was no like let's set up this company and let's go ahead and do it. We just had like some space in my dad's garage. I bought a bench, and we've always been very like hands-on. I've really enjoyed the like the clay modeling side of things. When at card design, the sketching was my like strong point, and the kind of design ideation was my strength. But I really loved the breakup of going then into physical and then back and forth and back and forth. And I wanted to kind of, that's what I missed with the job that I started in London. So I wanted to kind of like bring that back into my life. And we kind of, we just started to make, which we had this old Yamaha SR500 just lying around. It was actually my brother's. I bought it off him, and I decided to just strip it and see what we could do. So we bought some steel. We decided to buy some hammers, and just kind of just one thing after another. Once you start going down these roads, you quickly end up like down a rabbit hole of you discover more and more and more kind of like past industries which you never really knew of. Like the whole panel beating like side of things is fascinating, and there's such an art form, and there's such a fine line of it being a job and an artist at the same, sculptor and a claim. Like everything just kind of merges into this really like hot pot of like physical creativity. But yeah, there was no master plan. We didn't. There was no like, oh, this is the cafe racer scene. Let's go ahead and do this. We just kind of fell into it. Really, it was just pure hobby that turned into a profession very quickly.
Dude, you know, I didn't realize that that you were there that you were at Coventry so late, because I was there as well. I finished in 2009, and when I like kind of discovered you guys, I thought, okay, well, these must be old boys, and they had already gone and done their design careers and whatnot, and they were now branching off on the side. I didn't realize that you were there so late.
Yeah, so yeah, as I said, I graduated in 2011, so we crossed paths. We must have crossed paths
Must
in
have
like my early junior
100%,
years.
100%.
Um, and but yeah, like my brother's older than me, by the way, so he's not. He was in Coventry. He did product design. He studied product design at in the Essex University in Chelmsford. But he's 45, so he graduated a lot longer than me, and it was only via me finishing automotive. I think he wanted to do automotive early on, but I don't really think, like, just from a knowledge point of view at the time and accessibility, no one really knew of Coventry. No one, like in the late 90s, it was not really, you had to
Yeah, it
know
was
about it.
so
You had to have
obscure.
someone in it. Yeah. So
So,
yeah, the graduation side of things, yeah, 2011, that was when I graduated.
dude, it's mad. I mean, that's the question that I was going to have as well, because I thought that, like, I recognized that your brother was a little bit older than you. I didn't want to be disrespectful in any way, but I wondered, like, if what his path was. So it's interesting that he studied product design as well. And you said that your dad had a garage. Was that so? You guys were, and you, what sort of garage are you talking about? Was he actually fixing cars, or was this just the home garage where he was storing shit?
The latter.
Okay.
It was far you can't be as far removed as my dad is from automotive as a person. I don't He doesn't even have a driving license. So yeah, this was a home garage, man. This was the garage at home. Um and it would just, I don't know how the circumstance came about. It just happened to have some free space. It's a tiny garage, by the way. It fits one car in it, and it wasn't like my mum at the time got me to clean it out or something and like get rid of all the crap, and then so I was like, this is brilliant. Now I'm working and living in London. I want some space to store a motorbike finally. So I just kind of it just kind of really happened quite organically. There was no really but yeah, he didn't have any machinery in there at all. It was just storage. It was just like a normal domestic garage. Yeah, I should have clarified that actually.
No, it's fine. I mean, I romanticize the idea a lot in my head as well about what you guys were actually doing. Because I had these like snatch scenes in my head where you guys went and dealt with some kind of bricktop geezer, and you were like, can we rent this unit where you're normally storing dodgy shit, and we want to start a bike company there. So it's quite interesting to see how these things unfold, because my first question was going to be like, where did you find the resources or the balls to go like, yeah, we want to start a business in London, and get a physical space there, because it's crazy expensive. But you guys are actually based in Southend, right?
Yeah, that's it. So it was exactly that. Like when I was working in London at the time, I was looking at workshops and what you could get in London. It was just it's not it's like the affordability side of things is tough because it's very expensive. But it's not just that. It's actually what you realize is a lot of because it's that price increase affected everyone, your powder coaters, your painters, your wheel suppliers. So all of a sudden, not many companies are operating in London. You realize quickly that everyone's moved out. So it's actually a bit more
Right.
beneficial for you to be slightly further out of London rather than right in the center of it, because the only benefit you get with that is clients can visit you a lot easier. But in a matter of fact, like being next to the seaside, we have some really nice country roads around here and stuff. So it's like there's no way you'd be able to do a custom build and then go for a test ride through like Clarkham or something. Like it ain't gonna happen. You want you want some you want some nice twisty roads, and you want some you want the kind of open beautiful roads that you need for motorbike. But
And are you guys surrounded by a lot of like fabricators and painters and welders where you guys are? Is there abundance of that sort of thing in Southend?
Yes and no. So you mentioned Bricktop because the we've dealt with people very much like him in acquiring workshops around here. So we from my dad's garage, we moved to the first industrial unit that we rented, which was really small. It was more of a lockup rather than anything. But at the time, it came available, and it wasn't too big, and it wasn't too much of a hit on, like financially. So we just decided just to go for it and start from there and see how it develops. But everyone around, all the guys that are around the workshops, they are like these old school fabricators, like more machinists, not like like stuff that we need, but more like, lathe and CNC operating, but like super old school. The guy next door to us had no fingers because he'd cut all his fingers off over the years.
No.
Like he just had like, half it, all his fingers had gone, and he was still operating these machines, like super old school dudes, but like the loveliest guys in the world. And we became part of this like tight knit community where we were like bringing out these kind of like Art Deco-y, like, like the bikes that we kind of build amongst this environment where people are just looking at these going like, what the hell is this? Like, I've never seen anything like this before. So we were, in a weird way, we were considered really like outsiders, as well as where we're from with our names as well, like, because everyone was English, everyone was, had been established there for 30, 40 years in the business with their families and stuff, but they were like so inclusive, and there was, we had no issues whatsoever. So we, it was almost kind of like a family, really. But yeah, then we moved to a slightly bigger workshop, and just literally the other side of the airport, because there's an airport that divides these two industrial estates, and this side of the airport is all new buildings being developed around to expand the airport where Southend is. So we are kind of right in the middle of it.
Dude, what you? It's so if I've got the timeline correct, you finished 2011. You were working for a product design company in London, and what? It was basically a year that you were working for somebody else, and then you guys decided to focus on this full time.
Oh no, it wasn't a year. It was I started at Acumen in 2011, and I finished in 2016. So the company, the Auto Fabrica, I started as a company in 2012. But so basically, it was a labor of love throughout my weekends, throughout my holidays. I used to take holidays instead of going away. I used to come and work and like build the bikes and work away and stuff. So, and my brother did the same. He was working in another job, and we were kind of just doing this in our spare time, trying to build it up slowly. And then in 2014 was where we had like I think about 3 or 4 people ordered at the same time, like within a week of each other, and it was kind of like the rubber stamp in the timeline where we'd go, okay, maybe Gazmend can start working full time, and then I still continue my job in London, and then shortly 2 years after that, I also left as well. So because it just got, there was one point where it really got popular, and it was around the 2014-15 era where the whole thing just exploded. And I think from a timeline point of view, the pivotal bike for us was Type 6, which was an old XS650 Yamaha that we ended up, that it was actually a bike that we bought. It was the second bike that we bought. And it was a batch of 4 bikes that we ended up going to Cornwall to buy off some guy who had them for like God knows how long. And we had to dig them out of his garage and stuff. So one of the bikes turned into the Type 6. That ended up going to the MB&F gallery in Geneva and being on the cover of the Ride 6 of the Ride 2 book. The guys that made that book as well, they were from Berlin. That ended up going to Berlin there. So yeah, it was definitely, it's definitely an inch. It was never like full time from the beginning.
Okay, so you guys kind of had the safety net of your 9-to-5s when you were first starting out.
That's it, yeah.
And what were your weeks looking like at that time? I mean, you said that you were basically using all your spare time to work on these bikes. I mean, were you were you finishing work at 6 and going straight to the garage afterwards, or was it just generally weekends and not too stressed?
No, it was like, we didn't want to put too. I didn't want to miss out on my youth, and I didn't want to miss out on, like, going out and stuff with my friends and that. So we ended up. It was actually a beautiful balance. It was a little bit like draining because I kind of ended up doing everything, like, going out and then obviously waking up early and then going into the workshop at the weekends and stuff. Um, but yeah, like going, finishing work, I'd finish work and I'd go into the workshop, do a couple of hours. But honestly, man, like, people do, people go to the gym after work. I just found like, it was just there's something about being alone inside a workshop or just with your brother or just, there's in a huge space where you can do whatever the hell you want. There's no one dictating
Yeah,
anything.
yeah, it's not work.
That is kind of like, it's not work, no. And it's like, it is. I always looked at it like gym, like where basically I'd go to the workshop to panel beat or to like get active instead of paying to go to the gym. It's like, why am I, I'll just come and do this. Like, this is way more fun. And I'm on my own. I can blast whatever music I want. And, it's, it's way more entertaining for me.
Where did you guys learn the some of the traditional techniques that you guys are well known for, like the panel beating, for example?
It's, honestly, from no one. We literally just started. We applied a process where I used a bit of what I touched early on with the clay modeling. I just kind of bridged the two. You had clay modeling, alias, and like panel beating is very similar to alias. Like this, you think in the same way. You have to think in that same kind of when you can master thinking in surfaces, then you can do whatever. You can create anything really. And that is the kind of mindset that both me and Gaz we ended up kind of like driving into. We just thought in surfaces all the time, and we started out working with steel, really, really tough, really hard, but easier to weld, because the first kind of welding equipment that we had was quite crude. Again, this was just because we didn't have anyone to go, hey man, what's the best welder? Or, at the time it was like the internet was fine, but it's nothing like it is today with the, how mad YouTube is with and if you want any review, you go on within 5 seconds, you've got to gain knowledge, or you go on TikTok and you've sorted out whatever you need to, to learn for something. But back then it was slightly more, time consuming. And yeah, so we had like some quite crude machines, like in terms of welding. We started with steel, to work with steel. And that was really tough physically because steel was so tough. And the English wheel that we had at the time was not really very good either. So the steel just kind of never really took off. And the only limiting factor that we didn't go to aluminium straight away was because of the welding. Welding aluminium is notoriously tough, especially at that like 1.5, 2 mil, 2.5 mil thick. And that's when we decided, like, we tried out a piece of aluminium, and it was so much easier to bend and so much easier to form, and it was beautiful to work with. You had a bit, because you were working slightly thicker material thickness, you could like sand a bit more of it and you can get beautiful, like it was a nicer material, plus it doesn't rust, it's more exotic. Alloy body cars and bikes are always like higher price, so it's like this makes way more sense. We just need a better welder, so we ended up going into gas welding, where we'd weld with gas. That basically, it was the gas welding that ended up, I'll never forget the day that we ended up welding this section at the rear of the seat successfully. I was like, oh my God, this is it. Like, this is the turning point. We can do this now. So yeah, it was very, like just learning on the job. There was no one really that came in, and told us anything. It was just, it was, yeah, just practice, man. It's, like with most of the stuff, it's always, like the more you practice, the better you get at it. The more you do it, the more you kind of learn the tricks on how to do it better and stuff. We had that every now and again. Some people like would come in that would see our stuff online and come in and offer their services and stuff, but we never really needed to, because every time the workshop kind of like turned from a panel beating workshop into a assembly workshop, into an exhaust making workshop, into a wiring workshop. So it went through phases of, because you can't like complete a bike while something is being built, sanding away and stuff. It gets very messy, very dirty. So yeah, it was just learning on the job. Like in answer to your original question, you just tried and failed and tried and failed until we kind of got a nice workflow together.
And you guys are literally were doing everything, like electrics and welding and panel beating, everything. It's you and your brother were doing in the beginning.
Yes. So the only thing that we didn't do in house were the powder coating and the painting, which just because that was the only thing that was readily available around us in terms of bike mechanics and bike electricians and panel beaters and exhaust makers around us. There was not really anyone there for us to go, hey, can you make this? I mean, there were car exhaust guys, but they were just more like, come in, put wherever. We needed them to look good. It wasn't just a case of they needed to work. It was just they have to obviously look amazing. So yeah, so we quickly established our powder coating suppliers, our paint suppliers, and from then on it was just pretty straightforward. The rest of it we learned ourselves, and we wanted to do that ourselves as well. In fact, because the washing programs like like Orange County Choppers
American
and all the West
Hot
Coast,
Rod, yes.
everyone has done this early on. Yeah. Seeing those guys and the way in America, Chip Foose, huge influence on me. Looking at how, and to be honest, that guy is, he's still to this day, he's still on the shop floor, and I think like that's who I aspire to be, because I think there's something about working on the floor which kind of keeps you humble and keeps you like, because you can, I think, in this kind of industry, people kind of veer off into these weird kind of offshoots into their personas and stuff. But I think the way the Chip Foose kind of works and how he designs and also gets on the shop floor, and I think I saw that really early on, and then I kind of just applied that later, and I think it's such a nice balance. Keeps it interesting, because every day is different. Every day is there's something there's something new.
Are you and Gaz in every single day?
Yeah, every day.
Wow, that's awesome.
Too many days, in fact.
Too much. So what was there something specific that you guys had that helped you stay focused on the bigger task at hand? Like, because it's all very well, people talk about having a dream and having a vision, but it's a totally different thing manifesting that vision. You can get very romantic about going like, oh, I'm going to rent a garage and I'm going to build a custom bike. And I know people that have started renovating a kitchens and 5 years later it's still a shithole. What did you guys do to stay focused on that vision?
I don't know, to be honest. I think there's something. The only thing I think is the reason why this happens for us. I've never really analyzed it too much, but I think there is still this process in the whole building of these bikes and designing of anything, in fact, is when you stand back at the end and you look, or that thing just is that last missing piece goes on, those wheels go on, or the tank goes on for finished, painted for the first time. You see that for the first time because you only see it for the first time. The client sees it complete when he walks in, but as you're putting it together, slowly this puzzle starts becoming like a picture. I think the feeling you get where everyone asks me what's your favorite process? My favorite process is that bit, is the final click of that seat when it goes in and you stand back and fuck yes, this is amazing. This is awesome. This is the reason why I do this. And because in all honesty, there's every project, you go through you go through it, and there's one section where you're enthusiasm drops because you hit like a brick wall in something that's really technically difficult, or like you like something's just not quite working, or you needed, something was, you wanted to, to have slightly more budget so you can push something, but you just have to overcome that and then just think of that kind of last product. Then usually whatever you're worried about, it doesn't really matter at the end. When that thing gets put together at the end, you kind of never really like go, actually, that was not as important as I made it out to be, and losing nights of sleep, and stuff. So, yeah, I think that's the answer to your question would be the finishing product and seeing that come to life. There's something really quite special about it. I can imagine, I'm not a father, but I imagine that's what having a baby in this world would feel like, where it's like, okay, right, now this makes sense. So yeah, kind of a weird analogy, but I get it.
Does Gaz have kids?
Yeah, he's got 2 kids.
So, like, is he constantly in the shit house with his missus because of work?
No, not at all. No, she's very supportive. The whole family's been very supportive, and my girlfriend's been very supportive as well. So it's not, because one thing that we did really early on, man, is and I said this to all my friends, and I said this to everyone, is like this journey that we went on, where we'd get invited to shows and go to different countries, exhibit bikes and stuff. I've always said, like, I've wanted not just me and my brother to benefit from this. I wanted our close people to benefit. So, I've invited my sisters to countries that we've exhibited. We've gone, all sorts of places. And I think part of the reason, like, when they get involved in something like as part of the journey, when they become inclusive, I think that helps in that fact that you won't kind of get grilled every day for going, you're just playing around with bikes all day, which we are. And it's kind of, it can be seen like it's not a job sometimes, but it very much is. And I think when people come and see how we work and how hard we push, then it's very much, yeah, they realize, okay, this is no joke.
Dude, have you guys, like, with again, staying on the subject of like your vision, or like wanting to see a complete bike, has there ever been a temptation to do things, I'm not necessarily taking shortcuts, but maybe through build number 2 or 3 or whatever the case is, funds might be running a bit tight, and you're going like, you know what, we could really we could sell some kits, which is like a short-term solution to maybe to money, but it can also be done in a fairly classy way. Like, I mean, there are plenty of companies that, like smaller companies like Hooky, for example, they used to, I don't know they're going through a transition at the moment, but they would sell like a kit for a Triumph or a GS or whatever the case is. Have you guys ever been tempted to do that? Or is it very much like, we want to build a bike from start to finish and we don't want anything to get in the way of that?
I think the kit idea came about when we met the Shun, which is the guy who did the Faster Sons program for Yamaha, which was the project that we got involved with the Type 11. So the Type 11, the XSR 900, which we worked with Yamaha on, that project was, and when we started that project, it was the kind of brief was, okay, you've got to build something that's going to be kit form, which will be you'll be able to sell on your website, on the Yamaha website, so people can make their XSR 900 like yours. But we went crazy with the design, changed absolutely everything on it, to the point where it's like, there's no way anyone can make this in the kit form. And if they do, it's going to cost a lot of money. And usually would probably end up they'll probably commission us to do the whole thing anyways. So we just kind of, it was an interesting story with that, actually, because once we showed the design to Shun, the concept that we wanted to do on like just some Photoshop sketches and stuff, he kind of just was a bit like, ignore the kit. Let's go ahead and do this. Like, this is nuts. We go crazy with this, and like, because I think they saw like how mad the concept was, so they just wanted to see that reality. And I think we kind of got like sidetracked away from that, and we quickly realized that, like, developing a kit, there's a lot of trial and error, and like you know a good kit from a crap kit, and like I think if we were to do something, we would want the thing to be like incredibly well executed. And I think with the way we do our bikes, I think if it's an Auto Fabrica kit and it doesn't have an Auto Fabrica exhaust, then the whole thing kind of is like a mishmash of two kind of styles. And our exhausts, we need the bike in the workshop to do the exhaust on. So because the way we make it, the sand bending of the exhaust is so unique that we can never recreate the same curve. Like I mean, you can get close to it, but there's never going to be exactly the same. So each pipe is different in its nature. So yeah, we would end up always needing the bike, because a lot of people even ask us, oh, can you make an exhaust for our bike and stuff? So yeah, if you can send it to us, then we can. But the cost of shipping the bike over from, it's usually the States or usually like Australia and stuff. So it's we've never really done that. And to be honest, I think I'm glad we didn't do that in the end, because it requires a lot of energy, a lot of effort, and I kind of wanted to have that clear Auto Fabrica parts on Auto Fabrica bikes. I mean, it kind of sounds a bit kind of, I'd want as many people to have, like, it's not like I'm being precious about the way we do our stuff. It's more just the fact that I quite like seeing like the whole bike in one kind of like Auto Fabrica image. I think sometimes I see some of these kits and people have kind of mixed and matched and put different stuff on how they think it works and stuff, which is cool, because I think that's what gives it uniqueness to it. But in all honesty, we just never had the time, man. Like it's just, we've been so busy building bikes for other people, and getting commissions and buying and selling, that it just never came to us to do anything like that. And it is what it is.
When you go onto the Auto Fabrica website, and if you go into your is it called the Motor Cyclopedia? Is that correct? Did I say that correctly?
That is correct. Yeah, that is correct.
All those bikes, are they just is that a documentation of previous builds, or is it like these are our stock builds and you can commission the same thing? Or both?
Yeah, it's a bit of, I get asked that a lot, and I should clarify this. Yeah, it's a bit of both. Only after we've released the bike online, that bike goes on there, and it's kind of a bit of a portfolio. Like, look what we've done for other people, and usually a lot of guys go, "I really like this Type 7 or this Type 10. Can I have it in this color, and kind of like experiment with that." So it's a nice place to kind of show people how and what we've done, and then I think also people get inspired and go, actually, I'd quite like this style on something else, or like they have their own ideas, and then they approach me. I come up with some rendering, show it to them, and then it kind of like the commission progresses that way. So yeah, it's a bit of both. It's like only after we've released stuff, but we are getting a new website done as we speak. So I think I'm going to clarify that a little bit better. What's like the kind of like scope of work. I'm going to have a bikes for sale section as well, because we've got some bikes out for sale. They've never really come up for sale, but a few clients for the past 2 years, that obviously whatever we've been going through, they've asked us to kind of recommission and sell their bikes on. So yeah, that's we're going to kind of like restructure that a little bit more, so it's a bit more simple, a bit more easier for people to understand.
Have you guys ever built bikes? I mean, you obviously in the beginning you did that, but like as the business has taken off, do you guys ever build something and go, in anticipation that somebody's going to come along and buy it? Because I guess you guys get asked all the time, like, oh, I really want the fucking Type 11, for example, the 7X, and you're like, well, you can't have that because that belongs to Frank because he commissioned it. Do you guys ever build beforehand?
Yeah. A lot of times we build beforehand. A lot of like when when like we go on certain sites like eBay, Gumtree, and Facebook Marketplace, we've kind of sorted the algorithms out to kind of tell us when, because some of these the problem like with some of the donor bikes is the prices have gone through the roof. So like you start having to put your prices up because of just someone asking a lot more money than what they used to when we started. And obviously everything else going up as well now, but it's more so for the donor bike prices. So whenever something comes up, like an SR 500 or like an R80 BMW or R100, we buy them and we just keep them in stock. Just we kind of buy them, strip them down, and just keep, because sooner or later someone's going to come up and go, can we? And what we always do is pass that, past the kind of like the saving of buying it cheaper early on to the client. So everyone kind of wins, really. We get the commission, he gets the benefit that he doesn't have to go and fork out £60,000 for a 1980s R80 or whatever. So, yeah.
Boy, what sort of build time is one looking at if they come to you and they say, I'm not asked, like, okay, not necessarily something like the Type 18, but like something a bit more straightforward, like the 7X, for example. Like, what are you looking at from the time that you guys have established a vision for the build?
Currently, it's a year.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a year, slightly longer for more complex stuff, but currently at the moment it's a year.
And how many builds do you normally have going on in parallel? If you don't, okay, all right. It's also okay if you don't want to, if it's giving away too much. That's also all right. Dude, listen, are you? No. Go on.
It's we have. I'll tell you, we've got about 6 or 7 on the go at the moment. But they are, there's 6 or 7, and they kind of run parallel, like overtake one another. That's why it's quite, at the moment it's quite like, it's a bit like playing chess. You kind of have to think quite far ahead. It's quite intense. We've never really been this busy before, so it's really quite challenging, but it's good. I like it.
And how many people are working with you guys? Like on a full-time basis? Or is it just you and Gaz?
Yeah, it's just me and Gaz. It's just me and Gaz at the moment. We've, instead of employing people, we've tried that in the past. It's been difficult. It's been difficult to find the right person to work with 2 brothers who argue all the time. And we've more established suppliers. So we've kind of like ramped up the supply side of things. So we've got a lot of kind of companies who we outsource the work to, like, for example, like the polishing and the kind of like sanding stuff. Like, we've got this guy who does an amazing job. He's around the corner, so we just offload everything to him, and he does that all day long. So yeah, we've kind of, and to be honest, like, I think that's a way better way of working rather than having someone around all the time. Because again, I treat this place a little bit like my living room. I put like whatever music I want on, blast it as loud as I want.
Take
it's a bit like
off.
like working in a studio, like I'm sure you know. Yeah, man, the temperatures that we've been having recently, it's definitely been that with some water spray going around.
Wet.
Yeah.
No, fair enough. Listen, I've watched a few of your videos and they're fucking great. I have to say, I know that 1 or 2 of them were like, for example, the Type 18 one with the BMW was probably done by them. I'm guessing, but that's not what I wanted to ask. What I wanted to ask was that in one of those videos you mentioned that you guys saw an opportunity to merge like kind of traditional um, uh, um, fabricating techniques with modern technology like 3D printing, for example. Is there anything that's maybe not so obvious that you guys have done that you haven't necessarily seen being done before, or haven't seen it being done well enough?
That's a good question. I think early on, when we just got the 3D printer, the reason why we said that then was because no one was really kind of doing this like at a larger scale. But I think the game has really picked up now. You see people like Oil Stain Lab doing this, beautiful kind of mix of 3D printing and industrial design and panel beating all mixed together, and it's essentially like we've that those kind of guys, I think, are bringing this kind of like that same kind of philosophy
Yes.
and angle
Yeah.
like really really heavy now. So it's like, and I think the standard has been pushed up a lot over the last year. Last couple of years it's gone through the roof, and it's been like really nice. The space has been amazing. Like the whole landscape has been really really nice to kind of see people push like conceptual stuff as well. And I've liked the fact that because we were kind of early on with the conceptual looking bikes, now they are becoming a bit of a norm, which is good because it's way more like way more interesting. I think when actual design is applied to these things, it's like awesome, because there was a period where it was a bit leather orientated and it was a bit like beard leather, um, and yeah, some cream paint and some brown leather seats, which was just a bit like after you see a couple of them, you're just a bit like, yeah, whatever. So,
Yeah. Dude, it's always interesting to me when I hear like a business owner, for example, that is in something that is a very competitive market, saying like, it's all good if there's more people doing it, because it's kind of, we all, a rising tide raises all boats kind of thing. But were you did you always have that kind of mindset? I mean, because I imagine when you're starting out, you kind of a little bit. It's got to be intimidating, or there must be a sense of paranoia if Johnny down the road decides, I also want to do custom bikes, and by the way, I also studied industrial design. I know how to sketch, and I've got taste. So, I mean, did that take a lot of time for you to become of that mindset?
yeah, for sure. Early on, I started business when I was 23 with my brother. So I was probably, a bit too hot-headed. And over the years, you become wiser and you understand the world slightly differently as you get older. So, and you realize that, there's enough space, there's enough people to commission from everyone. And, when it's very difficult to kind of um, if it was the other way around, for example, if everyone was like, "Yeah, fuck everyone else, let's all go to Auto Fabrica," you would literally have the worst time of your life, to try and like, you know, please everyone, and like your reputation will quickly drop. So I'm glad that there's people out there that can take on the work, and often, man, we've often passed work that we weren't necessarily like not interested in it, but we've definitely recommended other competitors to other people where they wanted something that we just weren't really fucked about to do. So we
Yeah.
just said, all right, just go, go to these guys. He's really good. Which is like crazy when you think about it. But then like, that comes back around. That goes like, hopefully one day those guys can send someone your way as well. Where
Yeah.
I'd like to think of it that way. You're stronger together rather than just being
Yeah.
like really like,
Yeah. Yeah.
secluded out and singular in this. And one good thing was the Porsche kind of scene around where we are is quite interesting, because there's like Essex is known to be the Porsche mecca, where you've got like crazy guys here who do like restorations, keep like one of the most insane Porsche garages is literally 10 miles from here,
Wow.
in the world, and they've got all the Le Mans cars in there and stuff. So when you see how those guys operate, you quickly realize you're like, okay, yeah, fine. I'm not saying that the custom bike industry is more, or like the customer base is bigger than the Porsche base. No, that's, but there's definitely a lot less of us in the world than the, but you can see how those guys share the space. And I think that's, it's nice.
I think there's also something that we maybe not touching on here is that like the power of brand, right? Because you guys, I don't right like maybe it's happened by default and you've tapped into it more as it's gone along, but ultimately somebody's coming to you not just for your expertise with regard to how you shape a panel or how you weld something together. It's got like 50%, if not more so, to do with taste and what you're going to leave out as well as what you're going to put in. And I think that, like, to use a music analogy, because I'm quite big on this and I do this all the time, it's like the difference between an artist, like, let's just take David Bowie, for example. His guitarist or a session musician that they would have used on a record can fucking run over him all day long with his guitar skills. But people want David Bowie. They want the artist, right? And they want that thing that he does. And yes, they could probably somebody could probably replicate it, but it's not the same thing. And I think that, like, what you guys have built, and also it's funny you mentioned the Oil Stain Boys. They are also building a brand, and it takes time, but there's so much value in that.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think when you said 50% or above, I think the actual reality of that is 99% for us. There's clients in the world that we've never met, and we've seen money in our account, and they just said, just do whatever the fuck you want. Like, I need an Auto Fabrica. I need your thing. Just give it to me exactly how you want it. They won't even pick the color. They'll just go, whatever you choose. I'm sure it'd be great. And it's like, what better brief could you want than literally go crazy on this? And yeah, I think like you've nailed it. Like, when you have we kind of like, the brand just came out of nowhere for us. Like, it just evolved into what it is. We never really pushed in any direction. It was just complete organic, like, movement all the way through to what it is now. And people come to us to buy an Auto Fabrica bike. That's it. It's as simple as that. They just go, we want that. That's we want your vision. Whatever you guys think, it's all good. Like, this recent build that we've just finished is quite different to what we've done before. It's very conceptual, on a 2009 BMW crosser on the off-road G450X. We're releasing it next month, but the client with that, Alex, he's a really nice guy. He said when he commissioned the bike, he was like, right, so are you going to be talking to me, or are you going to not talk to me during the build? I was like, which do you prefer? And I was like, the latter. Let's not talk until it's done. He was like, okay, here you go. So it's like, it's crazy that that can happen. Like, and I love that. And it's a bit like the artist analogy is exactly what it is, because essentially people, like, yeah, fine, people go to an artist to commission something to get that artist work, not to get a kind of mix of something else or whatever. So I think that's where it changes. Like, it goes from being like a brand to kind of like more artistic.
I remember Magnus Walker saying as well in that Urban Outlaw film that everybody's watched, that he said, I'm not really the guy that takes commissions. I kind of build a car, and if you like it, you can buy it. But there's other people that kind of do that sort of thing. And I'm you've just touched on that now as well, where obviously you prefer not to speak to anybody until you've finished. Have you guys got to a stage where you can pretty much do that on every build, or do you have those clients that kind of insist on coming to see the build at every single stage?
As I've said that, I think it's also like quite dangerous to kind of go off on this road where you just do whatever you want, because I think it depends what kind of person you are,
Yeah.
and how much I think you can. There's something very scary about being alone, just you two in the shop and having your doors closed. Not scary as in like, you're scared of what's around you, but more from a kind of like a vision point of view. There's definitely something that you could end up doing a kind of Midlands take on something. Like there's just a risk of this, like something not quite working, and people going, okay, this is a bit too far. So as like we have clients both mixed. Some people like don't even want to know. Some current client that
Yeah,
we're doing an
yeah.
Africa Twin for, he's very much involved. He wants to like everything about the process, which is good. I like that because it gives me like a bit of a reality check on what actually we on how this works, and how, because it might not be like that forever. It might it might change into more of a more hands-on. And I always like to get the clients. I always prefer to meet them in a workshop. So I normally meet them in London first, and then they can come here and they can have a look at the bike wall, and we can go through the kind of quality of how we work and the process. But I also like for them to come and sit on the bike in this raw form. Sometimes they can't because obviously from being abroad and stuff, but majority of the time they make the effort to do that, so which is nice, which is good. And you establish like a friendship with these people, and they invite you to their houses and whatnot. So it's important, I think, the journey process of human interaction during this, because it's a very 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 personal thing.
Yeah, that's absolutely spot on. But there's always that slippery slope where you might say, okay, listen, Jeff, come and have a look at your build, and Jeff takes it as an invitation to fucking show up every day, trying to micromanage the situation. Have you had any situations like that where it just gets completely out of control, where you've had to politely tell the guy to fuck off?
No,
Okay.
never. Luckily,
Okay.
That's never happened,
Okay.
because I would get. I would have said the latter. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. But I is there. I know this is maybe a delicate subject, and maybe something that you would prefer to talk about on a project to project basis. But some of with regard to some of your basic builds, like what roughly would a 7X, I keep mentioning that because I really fucking like that. Like, what would a fairly basic 7X cost in the like ballpark?
Ballpark, you're looking at around £30,000 for 7X.
Okay, and that's
That's
including the donor bike as well.
yes, but this is what I touched on earlier with the donor bike cost. This is where it gets a bit tricky now, because Um, if we have the donor bike in stock, like I said, where we've got a few in stock to work from, then yeah, the price but ballpark is around that price,
Okay,
and it just depends what we can find at the time. Because you might be able to find something really good, you might not. Like we've had it before, where the Type 13, the CB 750, we couldn't find a bike for 3 months to start. There was just literally nothing available in the UK for 3 months. And I was looking every day. I had everything set, all the alerts set up, and nothing was coming up until one came up in Scotland. I was like, oh, fuck it, let's go. So we just went all the way up there to get it, because this guy needed it for a certain time. And we, like, when we have that kind of request where like it takes as long as, like, start it ASAP, but I need it for this day because I need to do like a rally or whatever, then I tried to hit that as hard as, but this build was quite challenging in particular because I couldn't find the thing for 3 months. So yeah, it just takes like, it just depends at the time, what is available.
and what exactly are you doing to the bike when you are picking it up? I mean, you obviously got the donor bike, and like apart from all the cosmetic stuff, like what happens to the engine, for example? Are you rebuilding the engine too?
Yeah, so the the whole thing gets stripped down to a complete nut and bolt. Everything is off.
Jesus,
Everything
wow.
is stripped all the way back. So you look at all the bearings, all the big end bearings. You look at the like make sure there's no cracks in con rods, make sure everything is good. New valves, new piston, new bore, new valves, new carb. Everything gets aqua blasted, everything gets cleaned. You basically give a new life and you check, because that's the only way to really check. Like if you know, if everything, when you're spending this sort of money on something, you want to feel like you can, like it's kind of had one life, now it's going through like a rebirth, and it's going to have this luxurious life of oil change every 5,000 miles and stuff. Uh,
And are you guys
Because you'd be surprised what you can find on some of these old bikes.
doing all that? Are you the engine stuff? Are you doing all that yourself as well, or is that outsourced?
We have an engine guy who does our engines. He's been doing them since we first met him in 2012. He's an aircraft engine builder around the corner from where we are. And he comes and he does all our engine work. He's next year is our, even though we started 2012, we really started in 2013. But so I'm making next year officially as 10 years of Auto Fabrica, and we're going to make this book with all the behind the scenes, all the kind of, it explains the whole story, the whole photos of the garage. Because the one thing with Instagram is it slowly, like quickly became into like, they only wanted to see like super slick images, and I never really put any of the kind of like the goofy stuff in there. And I thought, what an amazing opportunity to kind of like have 10 years of all this, like the whole journey, and kind of like, clip art type of small photos. And I want to do a profile on all our suppliers as well, because these guys are like proper characters, and I want everyone to see exactly who we working with. Ash, who does our engines, he's this like tall guy, white hair, white beard. He looks like Father Christmas when he walks in. And he's like they all have their own crazy stories, and I want to do like a real like breakdown of exactly who these people are, and how they've helped us and everything else. And I feel like that's quite a nice kind of 10-year wrap up of what we've been up to.
Yeah,
Really.
that would be super cool, dude. I'd love to get a hold of that. So you'll have to. I'm sure you'll communicate that with everybody once it's out.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, for sure.
But I guess we'll probably wrap up fairly soon. We're all busy, and I know you've got to get off. But I wanted to just ask you a couple of short questions. The first one is, do you think that you guys would be able to have enjoyed the success that you have if you started today?
Good question. In all honesty, I don't know. I'm not sure. I think the landscape now is quite tough. Um, I think the kind of social media side of things is quite throwaway. Everything feels quite throwaway now. Everything feels about clicks and views, and how there just doesn't seem to be a lot of. I feel like before, when we used to do stuff, even before when we were at uni, and everything kind of had this place in history, and kind of was quite like you could go back to it really easily. But now it's just like there's just something throwaway about what's going on. I can't quite put my finger on it, and it just doesn't. I just hope that we don't lose as much as quality is being driven everywhere. I just hope that like for something that for our kind of industry, this kind of custom bike stuff, I'm not sure, because especially with this, it goes through phases, and we are seeing the phase change at the moment. I think that whole kind of cafe race thing is been and gone. I've been saying it for quite a while now. Even though we do get commissions, I've always said I'd like to keep our bikes timeless. I didn't want to put any kind of timeline on where they were from, because I feel like that's what gives them the keeps the kind of value of them later on in life. And when someone finds one, God knows where, they're like, "What the hell is this? It's beautifully made." Doesn't I don't want them to be pinpointed to an era. And I feel if you started now, it's a bit of like you'd have to really you'd have to look at electric. You'd have to look at how this, like, we've basically stopped all sales to Europe now because of like crazy Brexit
Fuck yeah.
like laws and also like emissions and everything else. So it's not necessarily just the Brexit because you can get by that. It's just a bit more paperwork, but the it's the more the laws that are coming in into certain cities, into certain countries, you know, loud exhaust and this and that, where people like builders are starting to look. You know, you mentioned Hooky; they're great friends of ours. We speak to them all the time, and that's their
Are they going fully
they have
electric now?
shifted away from all
They're
that.
going fully electric now. Wow.
Fully electric, yeah.
That's pretty mad. I mean, what things would you not waste time on if you were starting out today? Like, what if you look back on your early days? I mean, do you think that you were fairly on the money with regard to the things that you spent time on? You said that in the beginning it was all about just building a bike, and you guys did that and you loved it and you had fun with it, and eventually you did such a great job that somebody else would have come along and said, can we have the same thing? Is there anything that you fucking bashed your head against the wall and in hindsight it was a completely pointless exercise?
No, luckily, I don't. I think the process that we went through, I think you should go through the starting small and gradually going big and big and big and big. There was one kind of like area where I was a bit like, I'd quite like to not do as many of these kind of cheaper builds. I'd prefer to go kind of high end, but that came like within like that came straight away really. Um, as soon as we got our first commission, that was a high end build, and it's kind of from there you saw that as cool as like the high end, like each build has its own problems, each its own pros and cons. When you do like a low budget, like low build on an SR 500, because the thing is crude to begin with, you know you have like you are improving it in every area. So like you see progress everywhere. So when someone sees it from what it was to what it is, everyone's like, "Whoa, the transformation is amazing." But when it's like a real high end thing, and you're trying to push it in these, like you're trying to swell it up in these areas, it doesn't like it's a lot harder to do that. And if you don't know what you're doing in terms of design, then that thing could just go the other way. A lot of people that take Ducatis on, for example, they're just I personally think
They screwed
they
it
do
up.
a
Yeah.
worse job than what the OEM bike is.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and it's super difficult to do. Like, and then the Augustas and stuff, it's exactly the same. It's like these things are beautifully designed by, you know, amazing designers. They, it's very, very hard to improve on that. And I mean, other than I'm talking about, so the bike is timeless rather than pinpointed to a scene, because anyone can put
Yeah.
leather seats on. It's not.
Yeah. I think the Type 11 is like such a great example of that. Like you look at that and you don't know if it was made in like 2030 or fucking 1950, you know, but then you see those details. Like you guys mentioned again in one of your videos that you want the client to like discover something 8 months after or a year after he's got the bike to go, oh fuck, I never noticed that. This is awesome. And the you know, you look at the Type 11 and that's such a great example of the timelessness, because you look at it and you like, it's kind of got a vintage 1930s 1950s like swooping line feel to it, but there's tension in the surfaces. And then also you look at the light and you're like, whoa, that shit is like modern, you know, it's 3D printed. And
Yeah,
that's super cool, man. It's super
yeah,
super cool. Super cool.
yeah. Thank you,
Dude, I before
thank you very much.
before I let you go, I have to ask you about that alpha project that you guys have teased online. Is
Yeah,
anything
sure.
what's happening with that?
So the Alpha project, we have been we started that last year, and we as soon as we started, we just got inundated with bike orders, stuff that we couldn't turn down. So we are going through the bike orders. We're going to be done very soon, and we will then go all hands on deck on that Alpha. That Alpha is it's a real passion project of ours. It means a lot. It's basically the genesis of where the petrol headness has come from. from that one car because one of our cousins in Kosovo had it where I was born, and back then in Kosovo, and ex-Yugoslavia, you didn't see anything other than Lada or Yugo or something like that. And when you saw this thing with 3 liter V6 like tearing it up the road, you're like, this is amazing. So yeah, there's going to be a whole story, a whole film behind it. There's going to be it's because it's not just, there's a lot more to it than just the
Amazing.
75. There's some tech inside which is going to be quite cool, and I think everyone's going to relate to it, even yourself. Oh, hello.
Hello?
Oh, I can hear you
No?
now. Yeah,
Ah, okay. No,
yeah, I can hear you now.
I was just saying that the images look great, car looks awesome, and clearly you guys have the expertise and the track record to bring something like that to life. So I'm really excited to see that, dude. Big time.
Thank you. Thanks, man. I can't wait either.
Boy, last question. Any advice for young people feeling despondent about the current landscape within design? So I can't get my dream job, um, and I'm feeling super low. What would your advice to them be?
I would advise them to, first of all, I know it sounds cliche, but I would advise them to never give up. You never give up. Try and keep working on your portfolio. That's always super. Just be active. I think the worst thing you can do is kind of lose activeness when you are when you're searching, and especially, and this the one thing that I feel really sorry for is this the whole algorithm now on with social media, where if you are not relevant, you just get pushed at the back of the queue, and you have to just push yourself to make yourself relevant. And once you start gaining traction, it might take ages. It might not. It might not. It depends what you're putting out. But I feel like just get on top of that and just keep trying, because it will eventually come. There's plenty of space for all of us out there. And I've done my best to take on placement students here, and to help people out whichever way I can. I think Luke came on your podcast.
Yes,
He was a
yes,
placement
yes.
student here, and yeah, and I've spoken to Luke a lot of times about about similar sort of stuff. You just keep trying, keep going, keep working on our portfolio. Don't stop, man. Just keep going.
And
Just
starting your
apply
own
to anywhere and be
business.
open.
And starting your own business,
Starting
would
your own
you
business is
advise
exactly.
against or for?
I would. Right now, oh, that's a tough one. I don't know. I think definitely it's okay. I don't think it's the end of the world with what's going on at the moment. But there's just you just got to be clever. Like there's you just got to be clever in what you're doing, what you're offering, and how that looks. And you need safety nets behind you. We from our point of view, we had like zero financial backing from anyone ever. My family are not. We are not from a well-off family. I didn't have anything behind. If it didn't work first time, it would never have worked, and it was just always self-funded. So, um, if you and having a job, for example, I wasn't in when I finished automotive design. I went to a design consultancy, and we were doing like private jet interiors and business class and first class seating, as well as product design. So that just showed that we graduated in a recession, and there was not really that many jobs available in the auto sector. So even for myself, I had to look elsewhere. And I think there's a certain, from a car design perspective, is sometimes people get hung up on this, like, oh, I've got to be in an auto studio, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, which is fine. But there's also like this whole huge, other world that we can explore, which is equally as fun. I mean, I got to live in central London for 5 years and try doing that with auto. It's not going to work unless you work in Nissan.
Yeah, and even then it's a struggle because it's not. If you get a graduate job there, it's not like you're going to be making bank necessarily. So yeah, it's not all
Yeah,
that it's
exactly.
cracked up to be. Dude, I can thank you so much for your time and for your generosity in the knowledge that you've shared, and I can't wait to see all the things that you guys will release. From future builds to the book, and also the alpha. That's going to be super cool. But I'm a big fucking fan of your stuff, dude. I really, really am. And the more that I found out, like what you guys are actually doing, it's it's so like kudos to you guys. It's really, really inspiring.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Thank you very
Cool.
much. And this has been fun, by the way. Thank you for inviting me.